Hello and welcome to Towne Yoga for some anatomy-based mindful movement. So this practice today, this yoga practice, we're going to focus on active feet. So really poses where having active feet is important for the integrity and alignment of the pose to prevent injury. This is actually a follow-up practice to the active feet discussion I had on the Towne Yoga channel, where we talked about why having this foundation of active feet is so important to prevent injury in the ankle and knee. So today we're going to do the how to engage our feet to prevent those injuries. So if you haven't checked out the discussion yet, I'll link that now and include it in the description below so you can check out the discussion video and then maybe follow it up with this practice where we go through the how, where we apply the information that we learned. So focusing on the feet as a foundation, we're going to start standing and just bring your feet under your hips. Today, the only thing we're going to need is the space of our yoga mat. So other props would be optional. I've got my little grips on here so that you can see my feet more easily, and if I step off the mat to show alignment, I won't. So feet underneath the hips, and you just want to start to kind of play with the weight in your feet a little bit. And we're going to take some scrunches and stretches to activate the medial arch. So looking down at your feet, just go ahead, I'm going to treat my hands like feet and kind of scrunch your toes in and then stretch them out and set the foot down. So we're going to scrunch and stretch the feet a few times. And that's just to activate that arch, kind of engage it when you scrunch, and then stretch it gently when you extend the toes out and set them down. And that's our first step in finding active feet, is just really, finding a little activity in the feet. And from this motion now, we're going to think about the weight coming to the inside and outside edges of the foot. So if you're standing here and our foot is neutral, I'd like you to let the weight come to the inside of the foot. And if you watch the discussion, we know that that's a pronation of the foot. And then I'd like you to bring the weight to the outer edge of your foot. That's supination. And you're just going to go between the two of those a few times, kind of like you're doing your thumb print and you're trying to get the whole print. You're doing a footprint, like leaning it in and then shifting the weight all the way out. And this is to help us get used to how your weight can really be placed in different parts of the foot. And we want neutral, we want to have it evenly into all four corners, so the balls of the foot and the heel there. So now we've done our scrunches, our stretches, we've let the weight come in and out. You might have kind of felt the knees follow a little bit. And now the last one here is we're going to engage some of the musculature around that ankle joint. So the first thing we'll do is with hands on the hips, I'm going to mirror you. So your left leg, you're just going to lift that left heel coming onto the ball of the foot and then set it down. And then we're going to lift the right heel, a little stretch over the bottom of that foot, set it down. And now, nice active engagement. We're going to lift both heels coming up onto the ball of both feet. Feel some strength in the feet there. You might have only lifted a little. Doesn't matter. Do that maybe one or two more times. And we'll set the heels down. And now I just want you to draw the toes of your left foot up, kind of pressing the heel down a bit, lifting the toes. Set that down. And now to the right foot as well, lift those toes. We won't do both, I don't want you to fall backwards, but let's do that one more time. Let's lift the ball, lift the heel of the left foot. Set it down, the heel of the right, little stretch, set it down. Lift both, find some strength, some engagement. And down, and then we're just going to lift the ball of each foot back to the shin. Lifting it up. So that's one way to just kind of bring some activity into the feet. They probably feel a little bit warmed up now. When we're going to come down into the bridge pose next, you're going to do the same scrunches and then letting the weight come in and out, and watch how that affects your knee alignment in your bridge. So to get there, I'm going to take a toe squat. This is completely optional because it's not a beginner's pose necessarily. So if you are in your practice and you're just getting some more information, toe squat with me. If you're a beginner, maybe skip this one and we're going to meet you sitting on your bum with your feet in front of your body. So at the top of your mat, we'll have hands to hips for balance, and you're going to lift up like you did before. Heels are going to lift. We're going to send our hands forward to counter our weight a little, and you're just going to bend your knees and hips, squatting down, keeping the weight over your feet. Taking it nice and slow, really letting those feet be active as they guide you down. And then when you get there, you're going to come onto your heels and then your bum. And plant the feet down. And this is where we're going to meet. So if it didn't look like that, let's meet here in a seat with our hands to our knees to kind of lift and lengthen the spine, open the chest a little. And we're going to roll down to our mat, take some healthy movement, and then come into our bridges. So reaching arms forward, palms facing in towards one another. About the C shape of your spine as you just slowly roll down. And then eventually, when your entire back gets to the ground, lift your feet, hands to knees, and just give yourself a little rock side to side. And you can bring the knees apart and together a few times, bend and extend them a few times. Let's just move the ankles and the bones of the foot around a little, and then set these feet down right in front of your hips here. And so this is the base of your bridge pose now, and we're going to bring attention to the feet like when we were standing. So first, we want to have them in front of the bones of your hip so that your knees are apart, distance of 2 fists here. And I'm going to flip so that you can see the angle my legs take here in bridge. So the feet in front of the hips, you could almost touch them, and we'll go over the alignment of the knees in the next discussion video, so subscribe to Towne Yoga. We'll talk about that knee later, but right now, how it happens when the weight comes to the inside edge of your foot, you kind of let the arch collapse, and you'll notice that the knees follow inward. And then if you bring your weight back to neutral, the knees come back to neutral. And if you take it to the outside of your foot, your knees start to come out to follow it. So in a traditional bridge, we want the weight even on our feet so that the knees are pointing straight upward. And a few times, just go ahead and bring that weight in and out to start to find it even in the center. And then when you find that even weight, maybe we scrunch the toes in again, feel that arch stretch it out. And now that we can feel the weight even through all 4 corners of the feet and you can feel the knees pointing upward, bring your palms face down, framing your hips, your shoulders a bit more firm underneath your back, and you're really going to focus on the feet here. So barely lift the hips, press your weight even to both feet, all 4 corners, and just barely lift the hip. Feel the feet stay nice and active, knees pointing upward as you lift a little bit higher. And then maybe a little bit more, but really focus on the base of the pose, down on what the feet are doing. Again, we're going to talk about the knee alignment forward and back in the next Protect Your Knees discussion and practice. So that's coming up. But right now, the base, the feet. You want to keep that weight even, so knees are going to stay facing the same way as you lower the hips down really slowly. Feeling that weight just in the feet. And let's take 2 more, or just a few more bridges. We don't have to count them. Really focus instead on the quality of movement, connecting as you press into the feet to lift your hips up, but doing it very mindful of the alignment here. And you're really thinking about how the knees are staying in line with the foot right over that ankle as you lift and lower. Because the base of that ankle hinge is nice and active. All right, next time you lower down here, we're going to rock up to a seat. So you can bring your hands to your knees, start to give yourself a little rock, chin to chest. And all the way back up, or your path up here, taking a little scoot back into a seated staff pose, if you will. If you come up to this seat and it's uncomfortable, you might want to go get a pillow for underneath your hips, so feel free to pause, come on back. We'll be here for a few rounds of breath. And we're bringing attention back to that base, our feet here. So in bridge, we really thought about that weight kind of in and out. Now we're going to think about the range of motion and the hinging motion of the ankle here. So as the toes go forward, point them forward, and think about this stretch over the tops of the feet here. And when we ask our feet to do this, are in poses like tabletop, in child's pose, in cobra, upward facing dog. Picture the ground is here. And that's kind of that motion. So that plantar flexion that we do with our feet, we ask quite a bit of that. And then the opposite hinge as they draw back. Now you can think about downward facing dog, lunging postures where we really want that alignment, the ball, the foot, and the heel in those very active legs. So oftentimes our feet are behind us when we're doing this range of motion. You're not looking at your foot a lot in cobra. You're not looking at your back foot a lot in a lunge. So look at it here. As you point your toes forward, does some of that side to side motion come in? Do you kind of come outward and inward with the foot, or is it pretty straight? And then the same when you draw back. Do your heels come in or out a little, or do you draw right through this straight tunnel-like motion? And you just want to do this a few times because you might inadvertently be putting your foot into an awkward spot during things like upward facing dog, and that can be causing a lot of ankle problems if you don't have this range of motion and activity in the musculature of the foot here to protect it. I have a video, 3 tips for using your yoga blanket, and that will actually give you one way that you can protect the ankle in things like tabletop and child's pose. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link that above and in the description as well. So now that we think about this hinging, we're going to bring it back into our tabletop and take a whole hinge stretch here. Sweep your feet off to one side, rock to hands and knees, coming to the top of your mat with the knees a little bit closer together than under your hips for balance. And we're going to hinge the ankle. So the right leg, reach it back behind you. Point your toes and bring the top of your foot down to the mat. And here think about upward facing dog or cobra and just stretch a little over the top of that foot in this mindful hinge. And then you're going to lift it up. You're going to draw your toes to your shin. Come down, think lunge as you gently press back into your heel and look. Look for the alignment. Look if the heel's in, out, or if it's neutral, right in the center. And you can keep looking there as you lift it up and bring the top of your foot down, stretching that hinge. And then lift it up, tuck the toes, and set it down as well. So we're going to do that a few times. If your wrists get tired, you can do the same motion down on the forearms, so you have options here as you take your hinge stretch on the right side. And again, picture the poses. Here, toes tucked, down dog, lunging. Here's the top of the foot rests, tabletop, upward facing dog. And now we're going to come back to neutral, both knees join. And we'll take that same thing on our second side, the left side. So reaching that left leg back, point the toes, and take the top of your foot down to the mat. Gentle stretch. Lift it up, draw the toes to your shin, and set it back down. Gentle stretch, pressing back through the heel, feeling that hinge. And you're going to take this mindful movement a few times, looking to that back foot. Maybe one more on this second side here. And then we're going to bring the knees back together and come up to our downward facing dog. So before I do, again, we're going to think about downward facing dog, that hinge in the ankle. So as we walk it out, you're going to think about that arch being active. We're not collapsing inward or outward. So palms are to the mat, fingers spread. Tuck your toes, just like that stretch before. And I want you to think about those heels staying in the direction they're pointing as you start to lift your knees, pressing the hands forward, hips come up and back, downward facing dog. Now look to your knees and your ankles here in down dog. And there's a lot more cues we could go through, but we're focusing on the feet in this practice. So looking at them, notice if the inside of your feet are collapsing inward. Maybe your knees touch even though your feet are a bit apart. Or you could be pressing into the outside edge of your feet. Maybe the knees are bent and they're kind of pressing outward. Find the heels facing straight back behind the foot and lift a few times and lower the heels. And then walk the dog by just letting one lower down towards the mat and switch. And again, you're just looking for that very active arch as you walk your dog mindfully, not letting the heel come out, not letting the foot collapse in. And then we'll find a bit of stillness in downward facing dog. Feel those heels, even if they're lifted, they could be down, but they're not collapsing. The feet aren't collapsing. They're active feet for a long spine. From here, you're going to look to your hands, bend your knees, and start to walk towards the top of your mat. And we'll lift up a little to create space. We're going to step back into a lunge. So I'm going to step this right leg back, bending the knees, right foot slides back. And here we are in a lunge with the left knee over the heel. Now, if you want a lunge breakdown where we kind of take all these concepts I'm doing and apply them into specific poses, head over to towneyoga.com and get on the wait list for my Pose Like a Warrior course. That's when we're in the pose and we really think about all these cues. Today, we're just thinking about the foot in Warrior 2. I'd like you to take your left hand and bring it up to your left knee. That's going to make some space for us. As you lower the back right heel down and just turn your toes out to face towards the right side of your mat, about 45 degrees. And now you're going to reach your right hand forward, lift it up like you're waving, and behind you, your left arm will float off your left leg, and you can make any adjustments here in your Warrior 2. Again, if you want to break down, go to towneyoga.com, get on that Pose Like a Warrior waitlist for that course. Now, just thinking about the foot right now, the left foot, you're going to hear teachers a lot of the time say to not let that left knee collapse inward. And I'll come mirror you. So this is your left foot here in Warrior 2. And so if my left arch is not active, and my knee is going to follow that inward part, that inward turn. And so a lot of times when that knee is kind of pointing inward from the foot, it's coming from that foot tilting inward and then the knee coming back to kind of counter it. So what you want to do is scrunch the toes, maybe lift them, notice the weight in your heel, and then extend that out and feel that weight even through all four corners. And now my left knee is directed right out over the toes. Again, if my foot collapses in, the knee follows it. If I have a strong, sturdy base, my knee is going to be in better alignment. There's a lot more going on here. So hold your Warrior 2 for another breath. Feel that alignment of the foot. And you might start to think, what about my pelvis? What about my hip? What about my arms? Pose like a warrior. We'll get there. Right now, just the feet. So if you feel that nice strong alignment, we're going to bring back our arms out And we're going to cartwheel out of the pose now and take the same thing on the second side. Feel it and try it again. Left hand comes down to left knee. Right arm sweeps up and over. And as that right hand comes down, turn the right heel up, hinge that back foot. My favorite pose out of this cartwheel is a twist. So plant the right hand. Right heel is lifted over the toes. Lift this left hand off the knee towards the sky. Enjoy your nice big twist here. And then as the left hand comes back down, we're going to step this right foot up. A little halfway lift, a little space. Same thing on the side. Hands come down, knees bend, slide the left leg back. Pause in your lunge. So, right hand comes to right knee. That gives us some space. And now as this back foot turns down, you're going to lift the left hand forward, wave out, and cartwheel back, right arm extending out in front here. You can make any little adjustments for now that you need to in the legs. And then maybe lower the hands down and just think about the base again. This right knee, is it from an active right foot, or is the foot collapsing inward, bringing the knee with it? Scrunch the right toes. Lift the ball of the foot so your weight's in the heel, and then set it back down with that nice active arch, right knees directly over the heel, strong line. Breathe for a minute, feel that active front foot, and then we'll extend our arms back out. We're going to cartwheel down into our twist. Right arm's going to lower, left arm's going to sweep back, and as it comes forward, that left heel turns back. Find the hinge. As the left hand comes down, float the right fingers up towards the sky. Stacked shoulder twist. And then the right hand's going to come back down. And we're going to step our left foot to right for a moment. And then come back to a down dog. So bend both knees, plant the hands, walk it back, hips stay high. Feel that alignment, heels in line with the toes. And then lift the heels up. Lower your knees down, and we're going to take a nice little stretch for the plantar fascia by walking the hands back as you lower the weight of your heels down, of your hips down onto your heels. You might stack, you might not, but this is a nice passive stretch for the bottoms of our feet. The bottoms of our feet are the plantar surface. The outermost layer of tissue that's connecting everything is the fascia. So this is a stretch for the plantar fascia, and you might be familiar with plantar fasciitis, which is inflammation of that tissue. So we want to stretch it gently and mindfully on the regular basis. When you go from very little activity to a lot, that can cause some of that inflammation. So taking gentle movement each day in this area, a very smart thing to do. Now we're going to stretch the top side of the foot, the dorsal side, if you will. Bring your hands back down. Go ahead and lift and untuck those toes. And then start to walk your hips back. And now we have the weight stretching again. You might still be here, or you might be sitting all the way back. Yogi's choice, countering, stretching over the top of that foot for a breath. And that is going to be our practice for today. So if you can tell, this is kind of a bit of a series here. So we had our discussion and our practice on active feet. The next discussion and practice to come to be on protecting your knees. So we're kind of working up the body. I recommend subscribing. That's a great way to know when the new videos are coming out in this series. But also joining my email list. If you head over to towneyoga.com, and I'll have links to that in the description below, you can sign up to get on my email list, and that'll give you a little bit more around each video. So some other resources that you might enjoy, maybe some other people who have posted practices that I think kind of hit the topic really well. So if you get on my email list, when I have new videos that come out that have those additional resources, I'll make sure to send those along. and also teachers, new teachers, nerdy teachers, people who about this type of stuff, head over to Towne Yoga as well. I have some free giveaways on kind of sequencing tips that I have in mind for teachers or for those who are really trying to develop a intentional personal practice, maybe to strengthen specific areas that you know need a little work, or you've been practicing but you've had injuries and you're trying to focus on your alignment. Courses would be great for you as well. With all of that, I really look forward to seeing you as we progress through understanding more about our bodies, answering those why questions first with the discussions. Why do these cues come up so often, especially like that warrior two, knee in line with foot? How can I find that alignment is then what we're going to look at. Why do I need it? How can I find it? Let's continue to go through that together. I'm going to end this practice like I do formally and my other practices with hands at heart center. A beautiful space to let you know that the light in me affects the light in you. Thank you for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next practice.